Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the Morlocks featured in both film adaptations of H.G. Wells' novel, The Time Machine, which was first published in 1895. I'm also pleased to announce that I'm launching some new merchandise in partnership with Merch Labs and Gummy Mall, so if you'd like to support the channel and wear some of my funky catchphrases, I've left a link in the description to where you can pick these up. There's a 20% discount code live at the moment, so type in thank you in capital letters to activate it with your purchase. But with all that having been said, in the novel, the Morlocks were a fictional species and descendants of Homo sapiens that served as the main antagonists of the narrative. Though not officially confirmed, their name Morlock is believed to have been inspired by the Morlacks, a term used to describe Serbo-Croatians before the dissolution of the Republic of Venice in 1797. The famed author, who was born on the 21st of September 1866, would go on to become one of the most prolific, forward-thinking writers of his time. Known for using a blend of science fiction and reality in many of his short stories and novels, most notably in The War of the Worlds, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Invisible Man, and of course The Time Machine, much of his work served as a social commentary of his times and a stark warning of the possible future ahead. His earliest training was in the medical field of biology, and as a believer of Darwin's theory of evolution, at a time when most in the scientific community ignored his work, considering it to be erroneous. It's no wonder that much of this would go on to influence his writing career. The novel and films revolve around a brilliant mathematician and scientist who develops a time machine. Curious to see what the future held, the unnamed character in the book travels further and further into the depths of tomorrow, witnessing gradual and at times rapid changes in humanity and the world around him until he finally reached some 800,000 years into the future, where he stumbled upon the Morlocks and the Eloys. In the book, the Morlocks were explained as having evolved from neglected social classes that lived on the streets and beneath the Earth's surface, while the ascendant class of society lived in large houses and evolved into the Eloys. This idea was based on the social and economic classes that separated the majority of humanity throughout history, where there's always been a clear divide between those that were rich and those that were struggling to survive. This point is exemplified by this passage from the novel. So, in the end, above ground you have the haves pursuing pleasure and comfort and beauty, and below ground, the have-nots, the workers getting continually adapted to the conditions of their labor. And, in the end, the balance being permanent, the survivors would become as well adapted to the conditions of underground life and as happy in their way as the upper world people were to theirs. When the time traveler arrives 800,000 years into the future, he discovers a new world where the previously neglected lower class of Homo sapiens had now evolved and ruled the world, hunting and persecuting the Eloys as punishment for the hardship their ancestors had to endure at their hands. Forced to live underground for generations without sunlight, the Morlocks developed a sensitivity to light. They had grey skin, chinless faces, a larger and more robust physique to their counterparts, and huge red eyes. While they were the dominant species, their sensitivity to light forced them to hunt their prey during the night. Because of the harsh conditions that ravaged the Earth, making nutrient-rich foods and water scarce, both species evolved to become considerably weaker to humans of old. But it's clear that the Morlocks were the strongest of the two, as witnessed with the ease in which they were able to hunt the Eloys, who could do nothing but flee in panic. One of the most interesting things about the Morlocks was that they actually had a symbiotic relationship with the Eloys, with the latter serving as food for them, while the Morlocks also provided food and clothing for the weaker species. The time traveler even acknowledges this and theorizes that their current symbiosis must have been derived from the class differences present within his own time, with the working class relegated to working and living underground, so that the upper class could live on the surface in luxurious exuberance. Both the 1960 and 2002 film adaptations of The Time Machine, however, go in a very different direction, abandoning the rich thematic dichotomy of class and privilege in favor of cataclysmic Earth events that created the new divide. In the first film starring Rod Taylor, the Morlocks were similar to their novel counterparts, but their backstory is much different, as they did not evolve from lower social classes, but instead their existence was the result of catastrophic wars that destroyed much of contemporary civilization and a large portion of the human race. In the latter adaptation starring Guy Pearce, the calamity that divided the human race into the two subspecies wasn't an atomic war, but a failed settlement attempt that fractured the moon. These Morlocks also did not appear to fear daylight, and were much more of a threat than their novel counterparts. We're also introduced to the Uber Morlock, played by the sensational Jeremy Irons, who controlled the minds of the other members of his species telepathically, serving a similar purpose to queens and bee colonies. The Uber Morlock was a dark visage of humanity's future as a cold, logical, and arrogant overlord, but despite his cruel and inexcusable treatment of the weaker species, he saw the time traveler as a potential friend to cure his loneliness, and was surprisingly reasonable towards him. He was generally cultured, sophisticated, soft-spoken, polite, and he was not malicious, but eager to survive and preserve the Morlock lineage, at the expense of the Eloi.
Do I surprise you?
A little, yes.
We weren't always like this.
While the films are enjoyable, I felt that they missed a perfect opportunity to deal with the themes of light and darkness, as well as social justice featured in the original novel by H.G. Wells. I also couldn't help but notice the similarities of the use of light and darkness and social justice in The Time Machine to that of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, which depicted the horrible conditions of the lower class that led to the French Revolution. Both texts are a clear warning addressed to the aristocracy, indicating that if the rich continued to plant the seeds of revolution through behaving unjustly, they could be certain of harvesting the revolution in time. Crush humanity out of shape once more under similar hammers, and it will twist itself into the same tortured forms. Sow the same seeds of rapacious license and oppression over again, and it will surely yield the same fruit according to its kind. Well, that's all for today, folks. A big thanks to all of you guys who requested we take a look at the Morlocks featured in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Nihat here with Film and Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
After the moon fell from the sky, the Earth could no longer sustain the species. Some managed to stay above. The rest of us escaped underground. Bred to be predators, but bred also to be controlled, you see. My caste concentrated on expanding our cerebral abilities.
So it's not enough that you hunt them down like animals.
That's their role here.
To be your food.
Yes.
Have you not considered the human cost of what it is you're doing?
We all pay a price. Alexander.